Hello and welcome to another Easify video. Today I'm going to show you how you can connect Microsoft Excel to your Easify Cloud Server and pull data from Easify into a spreadsheet. So if you want to slice and dice your data in a way that isn't already built into Easify Pro, this is a great way to go about it. Due to the security requirements of Microsoft Excel, this is a feature that's only available to Easify Cloud Server subscribers. On our cloud servers, we're able to meet and maintain those security requirements, which makes it possible to connect with Excel. Okay, let's get started. Connecting Excel to your Easify Cloud Server. As I mentioned in the intro, this only works for Easify Cloud servers. Microsoft Excel has some pretty strict security requirements in terms of where it connects and how it connects to things. And those are security requirements we can only really achieve on our secure cloud servers. So if you're using Easify in premises, this won't apply to you. This only applies to our Easify Cloud subscribers. Okay, so the Excel connection to your Easify Cloud Server isn't enabled by default. If you want to connect Excel to your Easify Cloud Server, you need to ask us to enable it for you. So all you've got to do is just ping us an email to support@easify.co.uk. Just say, I'd like you to enable my Easify Cloud Server for Excel, and we'll do that, and we'll let you know when it's ready to go. The reason we do that is just added security. We only turn on features really as you need them. So just let us know if you need it enabled, and we can do that. Okay, so let's load Excel. So I'll click on the Windows Start button and I'll type EXC and it pops up with Excel. So I'll click that with the mouse and we'll start with a blank workbook. And what we need to do to connect is go to the Data tab up here. And then you need to click From Other Sources. And if you drop that down, you'll see from OData data feed, and that's the one you want. Easify uses OData data feeds. So click that. In the next window, it asks for link or file in location of the data feed. So that will be a URL that we will have sent you when we enabled your Easify Cloud Server. So let me just go and grab that a moment. And I've got one I can use as a demonstration here. And log on credentials. Select use this name and password, and the username and password will be your username and password that you use to log into your Easify Cloud Server. So I've got a demo user I can use for that. And as I say, this would be your username and password in the format of an email address and a password. And click on next. And then there'll be a slight pause while Excel goes off, talks to your Easify Cloud Server, and gets a list of all the tables that you could possibly have. So if you scroll through this list, you'll see these are all the data tables within Easify where all of your Easify data is stored. And you'll need to pick a table that you want to look at. So obviously that will depend on what you want to pull out of Easify, but we're just going to go and choose the products table and we'll look at some products. So we'll tick that and we click on next. And it says save data connection file and finish. And you've got the option here to save your password in the file. That's entirely up to you. If your local system is secure enough, save the password in the file. If not, you'll just have to enter the password every time. So I'll tick it and I'll say yes to the box that says the password is saved without encryption in an Office data connection text file, making your data less secure. Are you sure you want to save the password? As I say, this is a demo. It's up to you whether you want to store your passwords or not. So I'll say yes to that and I'll click on finish. And then we get another box pops up. And that says, select how you want to view this data in your workbook. And you've got a variety of options: table, pivot, table report, pivot chart, or only create connection. And where do you want to put the data? What I'm going to do here is just accept the default. So I'm going to say, I just want to view it as a table and I want it in an existing worksheet, which will be this basically sheet one that we've already got open here. So just click OK to that. And then it'll go off to our Easify Cloud Server. And there you can see we've got a load of products. And these are the products from our Easify Cloud Server in an Excel spreadsheet. And you can then do with that whatever you wish. You can slice and dice the data. You can view it however you want. A good feature of this, a good feature of the OData data feed here as it applies to Excel, is that this data is all read-only. So you can't mess up the data. If you overwrite values, they're only overwritten in the spreadsheet and they're not actually saved back to the Easify server. That's really quite a good feature because it means that here you're completely free to do whatever you like. You can't mess things up. All you can mess up is your Excel spreadsheet, and the changes you make won't be reflected back to your Easify server. There are just so many settings here that if you were able to change them, just changing one value might seriously mess up your Easify server. So you can be sort of safe in the knowledge that you can't break your Easify server from here. Your data is safe. Okay, well, that pretty much wraps it up as to how to connect Microsoft Excel to your Easify Cloud Server. Because this is quite a short video, you can feel free to hop off here and be safe in the knowledge you now know how to connect Excel to your cloud server. But if you want to stick around, I'll carry on talking about some of the more sort of in-depth features that you see here. For example, we can talk about some of these columns. You might notice here we've got a product with an SKU of -100. You may be wondering what those are about. You may also see that we have category IDs and subcategory IDs. So, as I say, if you want to stick around, I'll just talk about those for a bit and see where we end up. Now, you have to bear in mind, I'm not an Excel expert here, so I'm not going to be able to talk in great depth about pivot tables and all these other great features, but there are a ton of really good tutorials on YouTube about Excel, so you can always head off there if you need more details about Excel itself. Okay, right, so we were talking about products. We've got the products table downloaded here, and as I say, you've got a product SKU here of -100, and its description is loyalty points discount. That's basically an inbuilt system product. This is a product you can't edit in Easify, you can't see it in Easify when you're using it, and it's just purely used for internal use when we calculate loyalty points if you use the loyalty points system. So you can safely ignore that product. As well, you'll notice as well that we have things like category ID, we've got a subcategory ID, we've also got a manufacturer ID. So let's see about how we go about actually turning these from numbers into meaningful things. Now, what we'll do is we'll close this worksheet down. The reason I say we'll close it down is what we want to do is add some more tables. We want to open more tables at once in Excel. And to be honest, I haven't found a way that you can edit a connection to do that. The only way I've found of editing a data connection, if you go into here into the properties, this doesn't really help you to add extra stuff. So what we'll do is we'll just close it and we'll reopen it again. So I won't save any changes. And we'll just go back through the process and we'll load up Excel again, Excel, and we'll create another blank workbook and we'll go to data and we'll do the same again. We'll say from other sources, from OData data feed. And again, I'll just pop in the information that I've got for the demo. So again, this would be the URL that we send you. And this would be your Easify username and password. So we'll pop that in there and do that. Click on next. And it's come back to ask us what tables we want. Now this time, we're not just going to select one table. We want to see what's in other tables. So we're going to select products because that's where all the data is we want to look at. And we're going to select product categories. That's the one, product categories and product category types. And we're going to do product subcategories, which is there. We'll pull in product types and just basically pulling in any other tables that will contain data related to products. We want to bring in manufacturers, that might be useful. And again, you can play around with this as well. If there's a column of data that you find you need that isn't here, then you can always add it. So that'll do. That'll be good enough for the moment. So we'll click on next and we'll save the password and say yes to that. And we'll click on finish. Now this time, because we've got multiple tables, Excel is asking us if we want a pivot table report. Now, in this case, we just want to say table still. So we'll say table and it's selected new worksheet. And what this will do is this will basically load all of those tables into separate worksheets. So it's just getting the data now. And there we go. Now, this doesn't label the worksheets with anything helpful. It's a shame it doesn't use the table name for the worksheet's name. That would be useful, but there we go. So what we'll do is we'll click through, and that's sheet 5 is the products table. We can see that was the table we originally had. I'm going to drag that to the left so that that's our first table. And if we look through, sheet 1 is blank. Let's just move that to the end because that's just a spare sheet. And we'll look at sheet 2, and this has got manufacturers. It's got manufacturer ID and manufacturer name. So if you look in sheet 5, which is products, we ascertained, you can see we have a manufacturer ID, and each manufacturer ID that corresponds with the manufacturer in the manufacturer's table. So if you want to know who manufacturer 19 is, you go to sheet 2 And you look at number 19, and that's a manufacturer called Spinitronic in this example. And you can see this one is manufacturer 18. And we can go back to sheet 2 and see that that is down as Duracell. Now, I'm sure if you're an Excel ninja, there are ways that you can then pull those values in and replace them here. As I say, that's beyond the scope of this tutorial, which is really more about the Easify side of it than the Excel side. But the same applies over here with categories as well. So if we look through our other worksheets, we know that sheet 2 is manufacturers. In fact, we could even rename that to be manufacturers. And we could rename that to be products. Let's be really helpful to ourselves here. So that can be products. Okay, sheet 3. This is categories. You can see we have a category ID and a description. And sheet 4 is category types. Not sure whether we'll look at that now. Sheet 6 is product subcategories. I'll move that over. And then again, we'll just rename these so it's easier to see what we're doing. So categories. Spell it correctly. And then sheet 6 is, we'll rename that. Right click it, rename it. Subcategories. And again, if you go to a product, you can see that we have a category ID of 17. So that means that that is batteries is the category. And if we go back to that product, you can see the subcategory is number 1. So the subcategory is number 1, rechargeable. So you can see there that the numbers that you might see in these columns, you can see how they map to values in the other tables. So if we just walk through some of the columns here again, we have the SKU column. SKU stands for stock keeping unit, and that's just the built-in auto-generated stock code Easify creates for all of your products. Description is the description. We've talked about category ID and subcategory ID. Things like our stock code, that should be familiar to you. So if you've used our stock code on a product, then that's in here. Same with EAN code, manufacturer stock code, and supplier stock code. These are all things you can set on the product itself, and you can see them here. We've got the manufacturer ID. We've got the cost price of the product. Again, that's pretty self-explanatory. Markup, I don't think we use markup. I don't believe that's used. Comments, there was any extra additional notes on the product. We have a stock level column. This is the stock level is actually the on-hand stock level. So if you're using the full auto stock control in Easify, and you're used to seeing how much stock you've got on hand, free, and allocated, this is where the on-hand stock level is stored, and the actual allocated and free stock are calculated. There's another table that stores that, so just bear that in mind as you're looking at the stock level. This is on-hand stock, so this is the actual total of all the stock you've got, including all the allocated stock. Discontinued, that's just yes or no, true or false. Price change date, that's set whenever you change the price of the product, so you can go and see when it was last price checked. Again, you've got the minimum stock level, which should be pretty self-explanatory because that maps straight to the min stock level setting in the product, as does reorder quantity, and as does the tick box you'd have to say reorder when low in the product details. Again, here we have a lookup column, supplier ID. And what I mean by lookup column is that for the supplier, we just store a number and then we look that up in the suppliers table. So you could download the suppliers table and see what your suppliers were. Then we have retail margin and trade margin. So this is the margin that gets applied to the cost price in order to arrive at the selling price. We have the tax ID, and again, you could pull down the tax codes table to see what tax code number 2 is. Because it's there so many times, you can almost guarantee that standard VAT number 2. We've got a last stock check date, so the last time the stock level was manually checked will show here. We have whether it's published. This is whether it's published to price lists and e-commerce. Whether the product is allocatable is here. So that's set to true if the product is allocatable and can be used in conjunction with stock control. Loyalty points, that'll be set. Again, if you use the loyalty points system, you can apply loyalty points to be awarded on a product. So anytime someone buys that product, they'll get X number of loyalty points. So that value would appear here. And the weight, again, that just is the actual weight property on the product. Item type ID, this is a system thing. So item type ID will, I believe it's always 1 for a product that you can see. And you can see that this first product, the one on the first row with the SKU of -100, That has a type ID of 2 because it's a system thing. So you can pretty much ignore this column. Location ID, that'll be used if the product has a location set, and you can set the locations in Easify Pro on each product. We have a column here for discontinue when depleted, and that's just set to true. If that's set to true, it means that when the product stock level goes to 0, it'll actually automatically discontinue itself. There's a value here that tells you the date the product was actually first added to Easify. The column here, this one, web info present, this will tell you whether the product actually has web info. So on the info tab, if you've added an HTML description of the product and you've added images, this will be true. X supplier name and X web info pick change, they're no longer used. That's why they have the X in front, so you can ignore those. Tags are any product tags you've added. The condition ID, again, that's a lookup table. So the condition ID, that's the condition of the product, whether it's new, used, whatever you've set on the product. And there's a condition description if you've added extra notes about the product description. And then there's a column here, which at the moment, this is for future use. It's reserved for future use, which is use secondhand VAT. So we intend to introduce secondhand VAT rules on certain products in the future, and that column will be used for that. Okay, so that's a sort of a bit more depth on products and some of the columns and how to get the lookup tables. So what I'll do now is we'll close this down again, and I'll open up orders, and we'll have a look at the orders and some of the related stuff there. So let's close that, and I don't want to save the changes, and we'll click Start, EXE, Enter to load Excel, and we'll have a blank workbook again. So once again, we go to the Data tab, and we'll just create a new data source from OData data feed, and we'll go and grab our credentials and paste them in there. And we need a username and password. So we'll just copy that and paste that and put the password in and click Next. And this time we're going to look at things more to do with orders, give you a bit of info on that. So if we scroll down to orders, and we'll load up order statuses, order status types, order types. What else have we got here that might be useful? Look through the list. We'll load up payment terms. We can look at that. And there are two other tables here, which is order details and order details status. I'm not going to load those at the moment. Just understand that order details is actually the items on the order. So in the orders table, we actually have each order is stored in the orders table, but the actual products on the order are stored in the order details table. So I'm not going to pull that in at the moment because I think I made things too complicated just for this overview. So we'll click on Next, and then we'll save the password and say yes, and click on Finish. And it tells us we've already got a connection named that. So we'll say yes, we don't mind that. Again, we'll choose table and a new worksheet, and Easify will go off and pull down the data. And obviously, this depends on how much data you've got. If you've got a ton of data in Easify, this could take some time. So let's have a look. Right, sheet 1. Let's delete sheet 1 because that's just blank. Sheet 2 is the orders table. So I'm just going to rename that so it's just simpler for us. And let's look at sheet 3. That's order statuses. I can see that from this first column. It says order status ID. So I'm just going to rename that order status. I can type, honestly. Status. Right. Excellent. Okay. Sheet 4, we have order status types. So I'll rename that. And sheet 5 is order types. So we'll rename that. And what have we got in sheet 6? That's payment terms. So we'll rename that to be payment terms. Okay, so let's go back to the orders table and we'll just have a look at some of the stuff in there. So going through the columns, you see we have an order number, which is pretty self-explanatory. That's an order number. We have a customer ID. So the same idea as we've said, there's a customers table, which contains the customers. And on an order, we just store the customer ID. We don't store the whole customer record in the order. That would be wasteful. So we just effectively store a link to a customer. So you could load the customers table and look up customer ID 679, and that would tell you their name, address, telephone number, and all that sort of stuff. Date placed, that's the date and time that the order was actually created. Sorry, let me just double check on that. Was that, have we got a date raised? Let's see some of the other dates we've got here to remind myself. Date ordered, date invoiced, date placed. Yeah, I think date placed is the date it was created rather than the date it was actually, the order was placed necessarily. Subtle difference, you know, when it was difference between when the quote was created and when the customer phoned up and actually said go ahead. Right, we got status ID. That's the order status ID. So if we go down to order status, you can see we have a table here, and the top one was 6, which is a status of complete. So we go to the orders, and you can see that this top one had a status of 6, so that means that's a completed order. And they map to the drop-down list. So when you open an order in orders and quotes in Easify, these are what you see in the drop-down list. And there's a bit of extra information with these, which we won't really concern ourselves with at the moment. So back on orders, there's a column here that says whether the order is paid or not. That's true or false for each one. Whether there's a customer reference number. There's a column here that says whether the order has been invoiced, true or false. Bear in mind that as of Easify version 4.67, this alone isn't enough to know whether the order has been completely invoiced. You may have an order that is set to false, to say it's not invoiced, but you may have invoiced one installment, say the initial installment. So bear that in mind. Same with the paid value. It may be saying that paid is false, but there may be a payment that has been made. It may have a deposit paid, something like that. So this is set to true if the entire order is fully paid up, and it's set to invoiced if either there's no payment plan and it's been invoiced, or if there is a payment plan and all the installments have been invoiced. Okay, same with date invoiced. This tells you the dates that it was invoiced. And in the case of payment plans, that's the date of the final invoice that's in there on the order. There's order comments, which appear at the top of the order. Then there's a column for date ordered. And as I say, as opposed to date placed would be the date that it was actually created on the system. Date ordered is the date the customer actually ordered it. Date paid relates to the paid column over here, and date paid tells you the date that it was fully paid. Again, if you've got payment plans, if this is set, it means that all the payments have been paid in full. Private comments, this is the internal notes. So the internal notes for the order are in private comments. And then we have a load of date fields like the due date, the due time, whether it's scheduled, duration, priority. I don't think priority is used at the present time. And recurring, I'm not sure whether we use recurring and recur time period. You'd have to double check on those. But they're in there anyway if you need to look at those. Then we have the raised by column, and this associates with the username. So you could open up the users table to look at the user IDs, and I think 1 is typically administrator, and then 2 would be the second user you added to the system, and so on. Use trade margins, that would be set to true if the order has ticked to say use trade margins. Interest-free credits not actually used at the current time. Assigned to, I believe that's to do with the assigning jobs to customers, assigning jobs to users. Due date to, due time to, again, these are duration values that are pretty self-explanatory. Order type ID, again, we have the order types lookup table. So if we go to here, you can see that this is the corresponds to the order types when you open an order, and you can customize this from within Easify Pro, and you can use this to look up what values of orders you've got. Sorry, what values of order type ID. So if you want to know what an order type ID is, you can go to the order types table and have a look at that. Last modified tells you when the order was, in fact, last modified, last edited. Payment terms ID, again, that corresponds to the payment terms lookup. So you can go there and see that payment terms ID 1 is pro forma. Number 2 would be 30 days, or whatever else you've customized in there. Then we have external order number. This is used if you use e-commerce. So if you use Easify with our WooCommerce plugin, this would be the WooCommerce order number if the order had come from your WooCommerce website. Then we have net total, gross total, and tax total. They should be pretty self-explanatory. Those are the totals for the order. We have a tax calculation method. So an order can be calculated by per line item tax or per item tax. Sorry, per item or per line. So that records that. Currency, country ID, exchange rate, price band ID. These are for future expansion. We've been working on multiple currencies for Easify and things like that. So that's what this ties into. A discount fixed gross and discount percentage gross. If you've applied a discount to an order, they'll be recorded in here. And then we have payment plan ID. So if you have a number in here, that would associate the order with a payment plan, and it means there's a payment plan in place. And if the order has been included on a VAT return, you'd have a VAT return ID here. So that gives you an idea of some of the columns with orders, and it's similar for other areas as well. So the same for purchasing or other aspects of Easify. Now, Excel is really useful if you just want to be able to hook into Easify tables and on your Easify Cloud Server and pull out some data. If you want a bit more power, it is possible to use a thing called SSIS, which is SQL Server Integration Services, and that's a much more advanced product from Microsoft, and it's to do with their SQL Server system. But basically with SSIS, you can do much as what we've done here, but it's more powerful. You can actually connect to Easify via OData, and you can pull data into all kinds of things. You can actually pull down data and then merge it and apply formulas to it, and then merge it into text files or CSV files or other spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff like that. You can even merge the data into another database if you wanted to do that. Or if you wanted ultimate power to be able to pull things from Easify, then you can look at our Easify API subscription. I'll just show you that now. Actually, if we go to the website, www.easify.co.uk, and we'll go to the shop, and we'll go to subscriptions down here, and you'll see we have an Easify API subscription. Now with this gives you ultimate power in hooking into Easify. So if you find that Excel doesn't give you what you need, if you're not really into looking at something like SSIS, which isn't going to give you total control, you could look at getting the Easify API monthly subscription. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to write your own programs. If you know how to program, you can write your own programs that hook into Easify, and as well as pulling data down from Easify, you can actually insert data into it as well. In fact, you can do the full range of things you can do from with any database. So you can pull down records, delete them, update them. You can fully customize Easify to do anything you want it to do. And the API is actually what we use. We use Easify Pro uses the Easify API. So anything Easify Pro does, you can do with the API and more. You know, if there's some custom functionality you need, if there's a really tricky custom report that you want to do, or you want to write your own stock checking system, or let's say you want to write a plugin for a website and you want to connect a website to Easify that we don't have a connector for, you can do that with the API. So just bear that in mind. You can go and have a read about that, or ping us any questions you may have. So if you have any questions about connecting Excel to Easify Cloud Server, or even about the Easify API, feel free to ask us in the comments below, or email us support@easify.co.uk, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we possibly can. In the meantime, I hope you found this video useful, and until next time, thanks for watching.